Hi everyone, Jay here from Actually ADHD. Today's topic is executive dysfunction, which I am convinced is the main issue in ADHD. Basically, everything we struggle with can be traced back to a breakdown in one of the executive functions. And I apologize for wherever my eyes happen to go. I've got my script over here and I'm filming on my phone and I keep looking at myself instead of where I know the camera lens is. So it's gonna look weird. Sorry. Today we have two questions. Number one, what are executive functions? And number two, how does executive dysfunction show up in ADHD? At their most basic, executive functions are the mental processes that let us manage our lives. A couple of years ago, I got hyper-focused on the topic and did some reading up on a few things. And this reading is what led me to the information I'll be sharing here. I consider it fairly similar to some of what Russell Barkley has said about ADHD being primarily a disorder of executive function. In my reading, I found 9 different things that seem to be pretty distinct from each other. I think as I explain what they are, you'll start to see why they apply to ADHD. Attentional control is the ability to control what you pay attention to. It's basically being able to concentrate. It's also that thing where you're doing something and you get interrupted and then you just get right back to it, no problem. You don't do that? Me neither. It's okay. Cognitive flexibility is the ability to change your behavior and thought processes based on changes in your situation or gaining information. This could be as simple as noticing that someone is giving you the side eye and toning down your enthusiasm, or as complex as taking charge in an emergency situation. Cognitive inhibition is the ability to tune out unrelated stimuli and stay on task or follow a train of thought. This is totally related to attentional control, but it's more about being able to actually home in on whatever is important than about choosing what you pay attention to. It's a subtle difference, but it's there. Goal-directed behavior is about controlling your behavior so that you're working towards achieving goals. Everything from doing the dishes every day to completing a training course for your dream career. And no, you're not confused in between the last one and this one. Time has passed. I am no longer sick the way I was, but I am, in fact, wearing the same shirt. I also have a different filming setup that hopefully will let me look directly at the camera more often. We'll see how it goes. All right, moving on. Inhibitory control is the ability to stop before you act so you can choose the most appropriate way to behave in a given situation. It's got a lot to do with self-control. This is everything from keeping your thoughts to yourself, to avoiding impulse buys, to managing your emotional expression. Organizational skills are all that sorting, putting things away, etc. I'm pretty sure we're aware of what organization is. I will note that organization isn't just about physical stuff. It also involves thought processes and time management. Planning is the ability to think ahead and to break down goals into smaller steps. Again, we know what planning is. However, we aren't just talking about long-term planning here. We're talking about all types of planning, from what you're going to do in a day to what you need to do in order to make breakfast. Self-monitoring is the ability to keep track of what you're doing and how you're coming across, as well as notice things like hunger, thirst, fatigue, pain, the need to use the bathroom. It's sensory, and it's processing, and it's social, and it's cognitive. That's a lot. Wow. No wonder we have trouble with it. And working memory is the ability to hold information in your mind so you can use it to make decisions and complete tasks. It's short-term memory in some ways, but also longer-term memory in other ways. If you are like me, you noticed all the ways in which ADHD is affected by these functions being broken somewhere. So now, let's look at which symptoms involve which executive functions and how they might be part of your life. As a note, I'm using the types and the diagnostic criteria from the DSM-5 for this analysis. Okay, and it's yet another day. Anyway, so I'm going to be talking about the symptoms and then the related executive functions, and then I'm going to give an example or two. We'll see. So the first criteria for inattentive is makes careless mistakes and lacks attention to detail. So that is both attentional control and self-monitoring. And an example of that is uncorrected typos in essays and reports. I'm sure we all have issues with that. I even do, and I've been an accurate touch typist since I was 11 years old. All right, next. Difficulty sustaining attention. This is attentional control and cognitive inhibition. And our example is daydreaming during meetings or class. And one thing to remember for all of these is that all mental diagnoses, disorders, conditions, whatever you want to call them, are things that literally everybody does at least sometimes. The thing that makes it a disorder or something that can actually be diagnosed is that it causes disruption in your everyday life. So daydreaming once in a while during class or during a meeting, whatever. But if it's happening like every day or during every single meeting or every single class and you are missing important information because of this, then it's a problem and it's a symptom that should be reported. All right. Next symptom. Does not seem to listen when spoken to directly. This is all kids in some point in relation to figures of authority, right? Right. But again, we're talking about stuff that happens all the time, and we don't really have a whole lot of control over it. So the executive functions related to this are cognitive inhibition and cognitive flexibility. An example of this is spacing out during conversations. I particularly have trouble with this if the person I'm trying to listen to tends to repeat themselves or has some kind of a stutter. It's not that I don't have patience for that. It's not that I don't want to hear what they're saying. It's that I just can't listen for as long as it takes them to get a sentence out. And that is actually a problem with competing access needs, which we can certainly talk about sometime if people are interested. Next symptom on this list of inattentive criteria is
fails to follow through on tasks and instructions. This one's a doozy. We got working memory, we got planning, and we got goal-directed behavior. So this is a really important one, and it's just something, this is the one that Russell Barkley is referencing when he says that ADHD is a disorder of intention. We intend to do things and we just don't. So my example for this one is starting a task and leaving it unfinished. How many people have unfinished projects? Ooh, shiny. It's a problem. Next up, exhibits poor organization. Organizational skills. Yay! This is, the example here is maintaining a chaotic living space, desk, locker, etc. You're rarely going to find someone who is organized everywhere. I know that for myself, when I was working full-time, I was crazy organized at work. But at home, good luck. I also, when I was in school, my backpack was always really organized. I had specific pockets for specific things so that I could always lay hands on whatever I needed at any given moment in time. But now I'm a stay-at-home mom, and you can see the bookcase behind me. Yeah, that's just a taste. Next symptom. Avoids or dislikes tasks requiring sustained mental effort. And the related executive functions are attentional control and goal-directed behavior. The example is postponing homework as long as possible. You'll find this in all kinds of things. Anything that requires a lot of thought and consistent, sustained thought, that's hard for ADHD brains to do. So that is what this one's about. Next, loses things necessary for tasks and activities. And this is organizational skills, and again, goal-directed behavior. So my example here is searching daily for shoes, toys, keys, etc., often multiple times a day. Everybody loses stuff, but if you have ADHD, odds are pretty good that you lose stuff multiple times a day. Like, everyone loses their keys, but if you have ADHD, you might lose them every single time you need them. You have to search because you don't remember where you put them. Or you think you put them in this one place, and you did like 2 days ago, but you don't remember where you actually put them today, right? This is how that is. It's organizational skills, because we should really have a place to put everything in each time, right? So, that's why people have landing pads. This is where all of my stuff goes out of my pocket when I walk in the door. And then you always know where that is. But if you get distracted even once and put it somewhere else, you're not going to be able to find it next time you need it. And that's what happens. And if we're not focused on our goal of being able to find our stuff, it's just not going to happen. Next, easily distracted, including unrelated thoughts. And this is attentional control and cognitive inhibition. Our example is going off on tangents during conversations and in written work. I am pretty sure we all know what this is. My family is very good at it. We used to have a joke about my paternal grandfather, because he would start telling a story about somebody, and it would go something like this. Mrs. McGillicuddy, who lives down the road, not the one with the cow, the one with the chicken, who was married to Frank. Well, last week she went and, okay, I should probably tell you first that, her car is in the shop, and you get the idea? We don't need all that backstory. Just tell me the actual story you're trying to say. But this is what our brains do, right? We think everything is important, so we end up giving all of the information. I'm sure you've noticed that this is a thing I do. If you read the Tumblr blog, I spew a whole lot of information at you every time I answer and ask. I have tried to keep my answers short. It doesn't work. Next criteria, this is the last one for inattentive ADHD. Is forgetful in daily activities. And our related executive functions are working memory, planning, goal-directed behavior. And the example I've given is walking into a room and not knowing why. I would say that I also just gave you an example where I was trying to... I gave you the criterion, and then forgot that I needed to list the executive functions, even though they were sitting right there in my script, right in front of me. This is normal for ADHD. It sucks. I recently watched a video from Rick Green about the things that ADHD has stolen from him. And one of he talked about all the things that we all know all about. We there's the ADHD tax. We end up spending more on things because we forget that we have them or we lose them, so then we have to buy them again. Stuff like that. But this time he was specifically talking about memory. We forget stuff, not just the short term, like our working memory, but we also forget long-term things. He spoke very emotionally about how he saw a picture of himself reading to his daughter, and there was a game that they used to play and stuff, and he had forgotten about that completely, even though it was something that they did all the time. And it made me cry, and it's making me cry now because I understand the feeling that he was expressing in that video. I'm going to link that video in the description here because it was very moving. I think it's very important. Not just for us who have ADHD, but for everybody. We all need to really understand that this is something that we are all dealing with. It's a real thing, and it's not something that we have real control over. It's just how our brains are, and it sucks a lot. Okay. Let's move on now to hyperactive impulsive symptoms, the related executive functions, and our examples. I always have found it really funny that people think of ADHD as being this hyperactive kid, physically hyperactive, and that's it. And then there's fewer criteria for hyperactive impulsive than there is for inattentive. I think that's really funny. So I will be back with that. It won't be long for you, but it will be a while for me. Okay, I'm back again. Let's see what we have for hyperactive impulsive ADHD. So our first diagnostic criteria is fidgets with or taps hands or feet, squirms in seat. So basically you can't sit still. This is inhibitory control and self-monitoring. The clicking on a pen, chewing on a pencil, constantly adjusting your sitting position. I don't know if you've noticed how many times I move when I'm making these videos. Our next criteria is leaves seat in situations when remaining seated is expected. This is a biggie. We got inhibitory control. We got cognitive flexibility. We got goal-directed behavior, and we got self-monitoring. In my own life, I have noticed this with my child who paces while he's thinking or talking about an idea. Me, I like to sit still, so I don't really have this particular symptom, even though I was diagnosed with combined ADHD. Next, experiences feelings of restlessness. This is self-monitoring, and the example is always wanting to be in motion or to move on to a new job or living situation. I often get a feeling of wanderlust. I want to go walk about. I want to go and just do something else, be somewhere else, be someone else. And it's not really that I'm bored with where I am and what I'm doing, although I'm sure that does play into it a bit. It's more that I just need something new stimulation, something different needs to happen. Next is has difficulty engaging in quiet, leisurely activities. Goal-directed behavior and self-monitoring. This is playing loud games, talking loudly when you're indoors. I like to knit and crochet. I cycle through to coloring, to making visual art. Those are all fairly quiet, but I also really like singing. I like putting in my wireless earbuds and cranking some music on my phone, and that gets me through doing my household chores in the mornings now, and I'm really pleased that I finally figured that out. But I sing along, so I'm not sure how much the other people in the house appreciate that. Is on the go or acts as if driven by a motor. Inhibitory control and self-monitoring. Moving constantly, particularly the whole body, and that is the fidgeting thing again. I don't know why this is like listed as a separate criteria. People are weird, man. But you know, my kid likes to jump on the trampoline. That's a full whole body motion. His best friend, if he's really stressed out, he takes a shower. My kid, if he's really stressed out, jumping on the trampoline helps him calm down. It's a need to just get that out, right? That is definitely a hyperactive impulsive trait. Talks excessively. Inhibitory control and self-monitoring. This is talking more than others in a group, taking over the conversation. One of the descriptions of ADHD in girls that I read when I first started reading about differences between boys and girls, specifically boys and girls, like children, was that boys with hyperactive ADHD are more likely to engage in physical hyperactivity, so running around and climbing the walls quite literally and stuff like that, while girls with hyperactive ADHD are way more likely to just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, 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 talk. Me, you get me started, it's really hard to get me to stop. And so I have to watch, I have to work really hard at my self-monitoring so that I don't overwhelm people, especially in a new group of people, a new situation, a new social situation. All right, next. Blurts out answers. Inhibitory control, cognitive flexibility, and self-monitoring. This is where you're answering questions in class without raising your hand first. It's when you're in a meeting and someone asks a rhetorical question and you pipe up with a response where none was even needed. Yeah, it's just kind of word vomit. You know, kind of what I'm doing right now. That's why YouTube is great, man. You can just spew whatever's in your head and post it. And then if people like it, yay. If they don't, oh no. Next up, has difficulty waiting their turn. Cognitive flexibility, goal-directed behavior, and self-monitoring. So this is things like going straight to the head of the line without being invited, butting in line, stepping in when you're in some kind of a turn-taking situation, like in a meeting or something like that, where you're going around the table. You might accidentally skip somebody's turn and just kind of go. A lot of the time, by the way, this is related to being worried that you're going to forget what you wanted to say. That's the whole interrupting, which is next, but I just wanted to put that out there. And for the physical turn taking, it's more related to just not really noticing where you're supposed to be. Which is a self-monitoring thing. Interrupts or intrudes on others. Inhibitory control, cognitive flexibility, goal-directed behavior, and self-monitoring. That's a big one. So this is talking, everybody knows what interrupting is. It's starting to talk during a conversation before the other person has finished saying their piece. And it's rude. And we don't always have tons of control over it because that self-monitoring piece is one of those things that helps us not do it. So, breaking this down, inattentive ADHD involves attentional control, cognitive flexibility, cognitive inhibition, goal-directed behavior, organizational skills, planning, self-monitoring, and working memory. While hyperactive impulsive ADHD involves cognitive flexibility, goal-directed behavior, inhibitory control, and self-monitoring. Going even further, both types involve cognitive flexibility, goal-directed behavior, and self-monitoring, while inattentive ADHD adds attentional control, cognitive inhibition, organizational skills, planning, and working memory, and hyperactive impulsive ADHD adds inhibitory control. And just to make everything more exciting, if you have combined type ADHD, you're going to struggle with basically all of it. Now, all of this overlap is why you might be diagnosed with inattentive ADHD, but show some signs of hyperactive impulsive ADHD and vice versa. I think it's a big sign that what type of ADHD you have really isn't a big deal. It's more about which executive functions are breaking down and where that breakdown starts. I can hear you all now. That's all great, Jay, but this is not concrete enough for me. How can I know which type of executive dysfunction I'm struggling with in real life, and how is that supposed to help me figure out how to deal with it? Great question. Let's look at some situations I've dealt with and analyze them. First up, when I was very briefly studying music therapy, I was supposed to turn in a cassette tape with recordings of myself playing the different piano songs I was learning. I did not have a tape recorder, and being low on funds, I could not afford a good one. I didn't make my recording until the night before it was due and didn't have time to listen to it to make sure it sounded good. So I turned it in, and later my teacher told me it wasn't good enough of a recording and that such a poor recording indicated to her that my self-esteem was really low. I was able to borrow a tape recorder from a fellow student and redo the assignment, but that was a misreading of the situation, and I was not diagnosed with ADHD yet. Heck, it wasn't even on the radar. So let's break this down. I was given the assignment to record myself playing the songs I'd been learning in my piano lessons. I had the due date and plenty of time to get it done. If I did not have ADHD, I would have been able to break the task down into small parts and probably record one song at a time, make sure I had a good tape recorder to use, etc. None of this happened due to difficulties with goal-directed behavior, organizational skills, and planning. I did not have a tape recorder, so I bought a really bad one for cheap. It cost like $25. I had really low funds because money management is hard when you have poor organizational skills and inhibitory control. My piano teacher thought the poor recording was due to poor self-esteem. And here we have one of the biggest issues with ADHD, how others perceive us. My self-esteem has never been great because I had undiagnosed ADHD for most of my life. But that assignment went poorly because of poor executive functioning, not because of my self-esteem. I'm sure you see how the different types of executive functioning work together to help people manage their lives, and how breakdowns in different areas can pile up on each other to create chaotic disaster. Next story. I'm sure many of you understand about messiness. That's been a challenge for me all my life. When I was in elementary school, we had assigned desks with the storage space underneath, and I regularly lost stuff in mine. One day I was cleaning it out and organizing it, and I found a note from a secret admirer. Based on the boys sitting around me who told me not to read it, I think I know who it was, but I was also 11 years old. So anyway. When I was seeing an ADHD coach, I suddenly realized during a session that, you know what? I'm actually a really organized person. My ADHD just sabotages that for me constantly. So let's break down the messiness problem. Organization requires strong planning. I'm very good at planning, but there are other things that go into managing your physical space that are harder for me. Keeping things clean, as in no dirt, etc., requires that you also maintain a tidy space, as in things put away so you can access surfaces you need to clean. Keeping things tidy requires strong attentional control, goal-directed behavior, organizational skills, planning, self-monitoring, and working memory. These all help with cleaning as well. That's 6 things that go into just keeping your space clean and organized, guys. I think we have hit on why our spaces tend to be a disaster. So, here's the breakdown of that. Attentional control is how you stay focused on the task at hand. Goal-directed behavior is how you keep doing things consistently so you can achieve your goal of a clean and tidy home. Organizational skills are how you decide where to keep your things in each of your spaces. Planning is how you decide to tackle a task and knowing what order to complete the steps involved in that task. Self-monitoring helps you put things away when you're done with them instead of just piling them up wherever you happen to be. And working memory, working in tandem with attentional control, is how you remember what you're doing and don't get completely sidetracked. I'm still working on finding a system that will work for me. I know I may never find one, but I am going to keep trying. Exploring this topic convinced me that ADHD really is primarily a disorder of executive functioning. It's so clear to me that all of the issues we have, including the ones that aren't actually part of the diagnostic criteria, can be traced back to faulty executive functions. It's okay if other people don't agree with me on that, but I am finding that looking at things this way is helping me figure out new ways to manage my symptoms because I know which executive functions are involved, and that lets me explore where things are failing in more detail. My experience with planning programs and stuff when I was working in early intervention tells me that this is exactly how I can tailor the changes I make to the actual problem, rather than just making cosmetic changes that may work for a little while and look great to the outside observer, but will eventually break down again. Today's question: what types of executive dysfunction cause you the most difficulties, and how do they show up in your life? Video input. Do you have questions about executive dysfunction? Are there other topics related to ADHD that you'd like me to talk about? I have a running list, and now that I'm back, I'm very much hoping to get to them all. That's it for today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and keep an eye out for my next upload. Peace and blessings.